On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, the city of Newark, New Jersey wants to create a special unit to combat shipboard fires after the death of two firefighters. Hi, I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to this episode. So right now, car carrier fires are all in the news. We've got a fire going on right now off the coast of the Netherlands. Fremantle Highway had a fire break out. Ship had to be abandoned by the crew. One crew member killed, others injured, and the ship adrift. This is an issue that is ever present. We've seen the number of car carrier fires increase quite a bit over the years. And now we had the death of two firefighters in the city of Newark on board the Grimaldi Line's car carrier, the Grande Costa d'Avorio. And now the mayor of Newark wants to create this special unit to combat ship fires. Story in the New York Times. We're going to look at that story and break it down. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're alerted about new videos as they come out. Here's that story. Mayor Ross Bacara said he has begun discussions with the Port Authority and Coast Guard about creating a special team to battle shipboard fires. Come down here. The story's by Patrick McGeehan. The mayor said on Wednesday, he did this during the graduation ceremony for 9 new Newark firefighters, that he had met with top officials of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey this week to discuss how to better prepare for a fire aboard a ship at Port Newark. He said that the U.S. Coast Guard would also be involved in the planning. Direct quote from the mayor. "We are going to get people from each of these groups to come together and figure out how we put together a unit that responds particularly to issues that take place on the port. So we're not just ringing the bell and sending everybody that we have to a fire. We want some particular people who are particularly trained in specialized kind of instances to be present as well." Fantastic news, Mayor. Great job. My question to you, sir, is why the heck hasn't that been done prior to the fire that killed 2 Newark firefighters? You have one of the largest ports in the country in your backyard, and yet Newark firefighters have not been able to get the training, be able to get the expertise, to get the coordination that they need to battle these fires. And let me be clear, I am not in Newark, New Jersey. I'm in beautiful North Carolina, but I have talked to, I can't tell you how many firefighters after this fire took place, those who were there on scene, those who were in the first alarm, second alarm, those who were in mutual aid companies who came in, those who were in pretty high positions within fire departments in and around that area, including the emergency management areas. And all I've heard is the same exact thing about the city of Newark Fire Department, that they were understaffed and underfunded to accomplish not just this mission, but any other mission, to the point that I was told specifically that if a Newark firefighter wanted to go do outside training, that they were not allowed to do it, largely because, number one, they would have to take leave, which meant that they would have to bring on somebody else to cover them, which required overtime. And they weren't going to be paid for it at all. If they wanted to do it on their own nickel, in other words, if you wanted the Newark firefighter to go get training outside of Newark, then he had to pay for that himself. And let me be clear, there's not a lot of people who are going to fork money out of their pocket to go get training. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more as we look at this story. The Port Authority, which runs the port as well as Newark Liberty International Airport, said in a statement that the fire highlighted the urgent need for a review of emergency protocols that have been in place for 20 years. Okay, note that statement right there. So there are protocols that have been in place for 20 years. The city of Newark treated this fire like a structure fire. They went to it like a structure fire. Let me be clear. I've listened to the audio of this fire. I've listened to the whole thing. And again, I've talked to people. The chief on scene treated this like a structure fire, and it's not a structure fire. Shipboard fires are dynamically different. If you don't believe me, go look at the video I did on it. I'll have the link up above for you, but it is tremendously different. The agency does not employ any firefighters at the port, relying instead on responders from Newark and the neighboring city of Elizabeth. There's this issue about port authorities getting their own fire departments. Let me be clear, that's not going to happen for a variety of reasons. Number one is, yes, airports have it, but that's under the FAA. The Federal Aviation Administration mandates that because the airports are federal. Ports are local. They're municipal. They're cities. They're towns. They are not a federal agency. We do ports terrible in this country. We don't treat ports like a federal element. It's a state and local issue. And the question becomes, if you're going to have fire departments on ports, well, where's the cutoff? At what size port do you not have a fire department? because LA, Long Beach, big ports, New York, New Jersey, big port, Savannah, Houston, big ports. But what about Brunswick, Georgia? What about ports that, Mobile, Alabama, ports that don't have a lot of commerce but can easily have a shipboard fire? And this is why coordination with local agencies is important. However, the ports do need to provide certain elements to support the firefighters. And let's be clear, Port Authority of New York, New Jersey does provide that. They have memorandum of understandings. They have a training facility set up in conjunction with the FDNY, the Fire Department of New York, to train firefighters. My question to the Newark mayor and to the Newark Fire Department is, when was the last time your firefighters took the ride by bus over to the facility in New York to go train on that? Because it's available to you to use. Have you gone over to the State University of New York Maritime College to go look at their training ship, for example, to be used for that? Has the Newark Fire Department taken advantage of that? And again, I'm not blaming the Newark Fire Department for this, because you got to have the money and resources allotted to you by the politicians, by the city of Newark. And it seems as if they've been grossly understaffed and underfunded going on here. The agency said it would review all its protocols with a particular focus on arrangements in place to address fire emergencies. It added the Port Authority officials were engaged in a constructive, collaborative dialogue, with Newark mayor and city officials about this. Let's be clear. When this fire took place, there should have been a set alarm. Shipboard fire, and the Newark Fire Department respond along with a myriad of other agencies coming in. That didn't happen. Again, I listened to the audio call. It was treated like a box alarm for a structure fire with additional units sent. And then eventually, once the firefighters were trapped, they set off, they finished out their second alarm card and then brought in the rescue crews to do the search and rescue. At no point was there alarms given for the fire in the port to bring units, mutual aid units, fire companies, rescue companies, the boat from Staten Island, the Firefighter 2 from the FDNY. That was never done. And again, that has to be done in a variety of different ways, and you need to train on that. The mayor's plan sounded good to officials of the city's fire unions, who have been critical of the department's understaffing and the lack of adequate training in a force responsible for responding to one of the largest, busiest ports. Anthony Tarantino, the president of the Newark Fire Officers Union, I've watched Tarantino's talks here. He's a captain and said it's been 9 years since any of the city firefighters trained aboard a ship, and only 2 of the men who received that training are still on active duty. Now, before this fire, I learned the Newark Fire Department had somebody from Homeland Security come down and give them a talk about electrical vehicles on board ships. This was in-house training. They didn't go to the ships. PowerPoint slide, and they talked about EVs, electrical vehicles on board ships. However, listening to the firefighters who attended that, they told me some things that were just wrong, that were briefed to them, particularly regarding the fire on the Ho Chi Minh, the fire that took place in 2020 down in the port of Jacksonville. Again, I did a video on that you can take a look at. But if you're given inaccurate information, if you're not given enough information to not just battle an EV fire, it literally doesn't matter what the cargo is on the ship. There are set procedures for fighting ship fires, and that was not covered in this training. The Newark Fire Chief, Rufus Jackson, said his nearly 500-member department has been 48 members short of a full complement and would now be 39 short. He said the department intended to hire an additional 50 firefighters this year. Shortages in fire departments is chronic. It's been a big problem. And recruiting and training firefighters is very difficult. It's not easy. It used to be a job a lot of people went to, but now not so much. And you really need to increase the incentive to do it. Plus, it's a lot of training, because while this is not a fire that they would encounter on a normal basis, the Newark Fire Department, it still requires specialized training. And the question becomes, when your budget's short and you have limited resources, you focus and target your training on the fires you go to all the time, and you leave those one-offs to the side. However, that doesn't negate the fact that Newark Fire Department went into a shipboard fire lacking the basic knowledge they should have had in how to handle a fire on board a ship. It goes on here, Mr. Tarantino countered that 8 of the department's 9 deputy chiefs, including the one that was on command the day of the fire, were eligible to retire by January 1, and 3 have already turned in papers, that one included, with their intent to do so. Quote, "I hope the guys stay, because if they go, we're really going to be in trouble." While Mr. Picard pledged that the fire department would receive more resources, he adamantly disputed the notion that staffing or equipment were factors in the deaths of the two firefighters. This is Augusto Acabo and Wayne Brooks Jr. On the night of the event, I do not think, well, I'm sure that they were not understaffed at the incident and that they had the proper equipment. Those men didn't die because we didn't have enough trucks. That's not true. These men didn't die because there was not enough personnel there. All right, I don't like Monday night quarterbacking, but those two firefighters went into a car deck to fight a fire. And if you're going to do that, you need crews, you need personnel, you need a lot of people. And there's an issue here that is the command on the scene. Did the command on scene call in the requisite backup that he or she needed? I think not. I think you needed a lot more personnel on that scene to do this. I don't think they should have gone in on the attack that they did, but again, that's a judgment call. It's up to the firefighters on scene to make that judgment call, but climbing over cars into areas you're not familiar with is really dangerous. But at the same time, too, if the training had been done on this, if that deputy chief had gotten the training needed to deal with a shipboard fire, they would have known, like, okay, I can't treat this like a normal structure fire. I got to have this resources on hand to battle this fire. But if you're not trained on it and you go into a fire that you've never really prepared for or understand, whose fault is it? Whose responsibility is it? This commander, the incident commander, is going to live with the fact that two firefighters died under their command. And that is a burden I would wish on no one. For this chief in charge, it's really a problem. I mean, I would not wish this really on anyone. Having said that, the city of Newark needs to provide the fire department with the requisite resources and training they need. If a member of the Newark Fire Department wants to go train in the FDNY training center for shipboard fires, you need to let them go. And not only do you need to let them go, it needs to be organized so that you're rotating personnel there on a regular basis so that when the call comes up, they're ready to respond. Let me be clear. Setting up a special unit is great, but that means that you have to have that special unit on call 24/7 all the time. You have to train enough personnel so that they can be a core competent with that. What you need might be, this is Sal Mercogliano's opinion, period, is to set up a coordination with the Port Authority of New York, with all the adjoining fire departments, and have a run card that's going to be kicked off the minute you have an incident on board a ship. This should be the automatic response. We get a fire on board a ship, this is the response we're going to get. And then the training kicks in for the first in engine, for the first in chiefs, of this is how we start handling this fire. We're bringing the resources in. We know we've got this many people coming in, this many resources coming in. Now we can tackle that fire. Again, this is going to be a finger pointing here because of what happens. But the most important thing here is that today that bell can go off and a ship fire in Newark again, or in Savannah, or in LA and Long Beach. And understand, there are other ports that do this really well. LA and Long Beach. Man, I have said things about the port of LA and Long Beach that will not get me an invite to the port of LA and Long Beach. But I'll give LA and Long Beach the best credit in the world for this. They know how to fight a fire. They have done training. They have brought in the resources. They've worked with their fire departments. They have fire tugs in the area. They have practice on board ships, laying hoses, how to go about doing this. And that is the most important elements. You know, if your senior leadership doesn't know how to fight a shipboard fire, then that's a problem. That's a problem. This is not a firefighter level. It's not even a company level in some ways. This has got to be battalion chief, deputy chief level on how to deal with a shipboard fire, because they need those resources to do it, or else we could potentially see another death on board by a land-based fire company going on board a ship to fight a marine fire, which is not an environment that they're used to dealing with. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, give it a thumbs up, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit the super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a patron of the page. Till the next video, this is Sal signing off.